Okay, so my first 7 lines are all libraries. They're preprocessor libraries that list each header. For each header, they all do individual things. The IO stream is for input and output. The vector is for dynamic arrays. The string is for handling text. The F stream is for reading from or writing to files. The IO map is for formatting. I put the preprocessor library numeric for math operations and algorithm for handling tools. I use the namespace std in my line 9. It saves time and makes the code easier. And then it contains thousands of names, so that way I can put in multiple strings with that. My line 12 is a user-defined data type. It helps me group for months in single units. I can also do names, numbers, and days, all with this one user-defined data type. In my line 13, I use the string month name. It handles month names, and it's a simple array method. For lines 14 and 15, they're both double floating point data points, and they both are doubled so they can share high precision fractional numbers. So I use that to share my expenses and my budget. My line 19, my lines 19 through 24, they all print list of actions to console without returning a value to the caller. It's pretty much the display menu that the user will see when they want to select the choice for information. It also helps organize the code as well. And each function performs its own individual action. My line 25 is a Boolean comparison, which helps compare the month data. It helps compare two month datas for A and B in descending order. It'll compare it based off of which is in descending order. Is if A is higher than B, A will be listed first, then B, or B would be listed first, then A. I'm sorry. For the Boolean comparison, it's going to return true if object A has higher expenses than object B. That's what the comparison does. On line 27 the integer main is a standard entry where the execution of the program first starts. My line 28, the vector month data comparison to the year data. Month data is greater than year data. It helps me store the data. It helps me store data related to month and year. For line 29, string file name equals home expense text. It just lists out that the string file name would be listed as home expense text. That's the name that the string file name would be associated with. And then the integer choice is a variable declaration that stores integer values for user selection. The count homeowner expense calculator, it just states this is the output that the user is going to see, so they're going to see homeowner's expense calculator listed at the top as the title. My line 33, load from file year data and file name, is doing exactly that. It's loading the existing data from the year data and the file name that are listed in the strings. my line 35 is a do while loop that has a specific set of things that will happen. The code will continue to do, which is the doing is entering the display menu where it gives the user the display for enter choice, and then the send choice is the user's input, and it will continue to repeat and accept user input as long as they select the correct choice. The send option inputs and stores the variables of data that the user puts in, and the count option just displays the choice of output for the user. The rest, my lines 40 to 46 are switch statements that results from the do while loop. It just guarantees that the menu appears at least once, so the user can select multiple options throughout each list and run the program multiple times, unless, which is the while aspect, the display menu will continue to run each statement as long as the user selects within the range of numbers that are equal to 5, but it cannot be greater than or equal to 5. So it has to be within the case statements. So the program will continue to run through the menu as long as the user does not enter a number equal to 5. If that happens, it will successfully end the code, and it will return back to the main menu. The break options are listed to prevent fall through, so the code is just not continuously running. It has an end point for each choice. I use default for invalid user input to ensure that there's no crash. So if a user selects a choice, the code will continue to run as long as the user does not equal 5. If 5 is entered, the loop terminates and it will exit. When you get to line 50, if the return value is 0, the program will establish that it's successfully finished and it ran with no errors and return back to the main menu. My void display menu just lists out my console options, and the count is the display that will be listed. These are all the displays that will be listed for the user, so the user will be able to see the options for adding and updating the monthly expense, saving expenses to file, analyzing highest expense month, and show sorted annual report, or the option to exit. My line 64 is how you add data to the vector for monthly data. The vector will be added. And my integer M is for months, and it's basically saying that the user will enter the input. This will be the display input. The user will see enter month 1 through 12. The user will enter their month selected. That's what the send is basically explaining. Enter a month greater than M. So the code has a condition. It's a conditional statement that basically checks if the month is greater than 1, or if the month is less than 12, it's within the range, so the program will run. But if the user selects an invalid month, this will be the output that will show. It will show that the month's invalid if they enter a range outside of 1 through 12, which is what the conditional statement is checking. It will just return back to the main display page. My line 75. This is just the way you can input the string months by their abbreviated name. So this is just a cleaner approach. The statement also shows that while the expenses are greater than 0, it has to show that it's showing a condition that the user has to input an expense, and the expense has to be greater than 0. So it checks for the condition that none of the expenses are negative numbers, and that's what will be displayed. It will display negative expenses not allowed. Re-enter if a user enters an expense that is less than 0. So this send is telling the user to input an expense. The display name, the count display will display to the user, enter the budget for the associated month name, and then the user will enter the budget. A if-else program will run if the month is greater than or equal to the year data size. It will update. If the user inputs a month that is not equal to the year size, so they enter a month that's outside of the range, they will get a pushback because it exceeds the current size, which is already the range between 1 and 12 each month. This will just update the existing index as long as it's within the limit. If not, it will push back the code if it exceeds the current size. The next line, void save to file for the construct vector. This is establishing that the user can save expenses to each file, and that the information that you update to the system will be saved and stored. It iterates through the vector. The OF stream, it just has each string name for the file name, for the year data, and the month data. The month data, expense, and the budget will all be listed out for the user, and it will be able to successfully save each string. It will save the month name, the expense, and the budget to the file. So when the user wants to pull up any of the information for the month, year, for the month, expense, or budget, it's already saved once you input it, and it will display data successfully saved for the user. My next line, 105, to load expenses from the file. This helps check for file opening errors, and uses file load from file to add data, in file to update data, and cannot equal to in file to return. If there's no file, nothing will load. So basically, it's loading expenses from each file as long as the file is a string name. So it can be year data or file name. It has to be a listed file. If the file is not listed, nothing will load and it will just return. My next line, lines 12 through 15, just shows that as long as the data is listed, the file will load. The data will load. It will load the months. If not, it will push back. My next lines, line 120. This just shows that it will display the month with the highest expense. If the file is not correctly input, no data will load and it will return back to the main menu. The max month. It helps return the maximum element for the range for the user. So it will help return which expense was greater out of A or B. And it will return the month with the highest expense. So this is basically a comparison of the month with the maximum expenses. And then it will list the name as well. So with the money amount. So the month with the highest expense is what will be displayed for the user through the comparison of the constraints month data. And it'll compare the month A to month B, which is essentially what the Boolean comparison will do for expenses. It's going to compare the expenses of month A with the expense of month B. If month A is greater than month B, it will show the sorted expenses. If the year data is empty, no data to sort, nothing will return back to the user. This is basically showing that it's sorting the year data for the beginning to the year data for the ending, and it compares the expenses for the beginning of the year to the end of the year. And these final lines will show the sorted expenses from highest to lowest with each month. With the minimum fit width in this, each width is set, so it sets a minimum width for each aligned column for the next item being printed. So each width is set for month, a width is set for expenses, and the width is set for budget, so that it shows each line next with the next item being printed, so it's not bunched up on each other. It just helps the code return clearly and concise and in a flow.